The reason why I genuinely believe, as we all sit here today together, that because of this device that many of you are holding, we are living in the most opportunistic time ever to put yourself into a place of happiness. And happiness comes in all forms. And I think a lot of business and entrepreneurship, but I definitely want to articulate today a framework that speaks to how do you get happy because of how much opportunity there actually is. Let me take a step back. I was born in the Soviet Union in 1975, a little ways ago. I came to America when I was 3 years old. It was a very challenging upbringing in the first couple of years. 6 family members in a studio apartment. We struggled. We had to learn a new language. We started from the bottom, no question. As you can imagine, my parents are very much my heroes. My mom stayed home and raised kids. My dad worked every day, many hours a day. First as a stock boy, putting bottles on the shelf in a liquor store in Jersey for only $2 an hour. So very humble beginnings where the Vaynerchuks come from. But entrepreneurship was definitely foundational in happiness that we were able to create over that period of time. My dad worked quite a bit. Eventually, he became the manager of that liquor store. And that's when we moved to New Jersey, outside of New York City. And that's where I mainly grew up. And that is where my entrepreneurial career began. I always wanted to work. It came natural to me. It's what I wanted to do. When the summer days happened and all the kids wanted to play, I wanted to go wash people's cars. I wanted to sell lemonade. I wanted to do business. It was always in me. It's what made me happy. When I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I convinced all my friends to stand behind booths from the lemonade that I made, and I would make signs and try to think about how to market. Long before the internet, I cared about one core thing, which was the attention of the person that I was trying to reach and how I could get them excited to buy my thing. Eventually, after lemonade, I started my first kind of real business. In America, in the 80s, baseball cards, sports cards that people could trade became very big, and I rode that wave. I got very involved. I love sports, and I love even more buying packs of cards, getting good cards, and reselling them. And that's really where I learned much. To think that sitting here today and having so many people clap for you on the complete other side of the world, and so much of that was what I learned in the malls and conventions in New Jersey selling these cards. It's remarkable. I'm very humbled. I very much appreciate the warm welcome when I came out here. And I'm setting up this framework because I think, as I was getting ready for this conference and I looked at so much of the chatter about the conference and obviously phenomenal Instagram account of our hosts, and kind of just looked, the thing that I've become fascinated about and the thing that I want to talk about today is really 2 things. Literally right before I came out here with the organizers, they're like, talk about the how. And I asked them, I said, the how here or the how here? What's interesting to me now that I've been a little older and had my career, and I'll go back to it in a minute, frame it up, but as I'm segueing, what's interesting to me is every wonderful person that I'm looking at right now, for them to get what they want, happiness, forget about money for a minute, happiness, for them to get what they want, it actually is only one of 2 things, here or here. And here represents doing the work, knowing what to do. My whole career, as I got more known on the internet, I did not want to be a motivational speaker, and I spent many years not talking about this. I mainly talked about this. But after a while, what started happening was I started reading enough comments, because I read all my comments, and I just started realizing so much of why people can't get there has to do with this, that I started talking about it more over the last 4 or 5 years. But I think they both matter. You could be the most optimistic, happy person up here, but if you don't put in the work, and if you don't know what work to put in, it's not gonna happen. Optimism is very close to delusion. However, I believe that optimism is the fuel to practicality, right? If you don't believe you're doing it for a reason or it's exciting, you're not gonna wanna put in the hours of the work. And so that's who I've always been. I've always been ambitious and happy. I was very fortunate. I had a tremendous mother who loved me me very, very much, so I felt good. However, she did not create entitlement. When I lost or when I was doing bad, she told me. She didn't make a fake environment, which is a huge factor. And to be honest, my biggest concern about the last 20 years of parenting, too much fake environments, too much entitlement, which is why so many people struggle when they go into the real world, because the real world doesn't care. The real world is not your mama anymore. And so I think about those things. Fast forward, I was very good at selling baseball cards. When you're making $3,000 or $4,000 a weekend when you're 14 years old, you've got it. I was good, fine. But then my dad eventually bought a liquor store, and he dragged me into the liquor store when I was 14. I started making $2 an hour, bagging ice. This was huge for me. If I didn't have that transition, all the money I was making as a young kid, it came so easy because I was naturally talented. I think not having that struggle of losing all that because my dad forced me to work in the store and making $20 a day, that really helped me. And I learned a lot in that liquor store. Most of all, what I learned was to watch people. Today, after this talk, I will go to the airport, and on my flight, I will literally read most of the comments on Twitter, on Instagram, your DMs. I will read them, and I'll read them to understand, was there anything I said in this hour that stood out, that didn't hit, that did hit? I learned that watching people, and more importantly, understanding people, and most importantly, being empathetic to people was the best way to build a real business, to build something meaningful. The biggest problem, I'll tell you right now, one of the biggest reasons most people in this room, if they decide to start an entrepreneurial venture, a side hustle, whether you try to sell something in your home on Facebook Marketplace, which, oh, by the way, I'm going to bring up later, my biggest belief that the quickest way for many people here to start is to sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace, but I'll talk about that later. Whether it's that, whether you're finally ready to start your podcast on Spotify, whether you're going to build your Instagram profile or meme page because you want brand dollars, whatever you're up to in this room, the reality is that if you have to put in so much work, but so much of what comes out of people's mouth or what they post is selfish, not selfless. It's what you want. You want them to buy it. You want them to like your post. You want them to follow you. The biggest reason I have the luxury of standing here today is from the wine business to the content I made on YouTube when it first came out, to everything I've done over the last 8 to 9 years in my books, in all my free content. I've always thought, how do I bring more value to you than I get in return? It's very simple. Karma, or doing the right thing, always works. The problem is most people are impatient. The reason most people are impatient, especially in cultures like mine, Eastern European, in cultures like here, there's too many people in here that are trying to get successful too fast because they want to prove it to their parents. And in that impatience is a very important point. My friends, the number one thing I fear, period, is that people live their lives based on other people's opinions. The number one thing that I have seen as I've gotten older that has been very obvious to me is that most of the people here today do many of the things they do because of 1 to 5 people's opinions in their lives, whether their parents, their spouse, their older sibling, their neighbor. Living your life predicated on the judgment of somebody else is the great weakness of the human being. The biggest reason, do you know how many people are here today just to get affirmation from me to go and do something? I mean it. And it's fascinating to me, and I'm empathetic. I understand, and I want to talk about it a lot, because no matter how I tell you how to leave 500 comments on Instagram posts, or what time to post your posts, or why you should start a Spotify podcast tomorrow, or how you actually list an item on Facebook Marketplace, no matter what I tell you, if you post the first day and the person that you're worried about has a bad opinion of it, it's already game over. And so I flew all the way here 24 hours to put pressure on what is the most obvious conversation, which is, are you prepared to finally get quiet in your head and not allow the opinions of others to dictate your behaviors? Every person here knows what they want to do.
Can we prime ourselves to feel good? Yes or no? What if you knew you would have a really important conversation with your kid or your spouse or your loved one, and you're starting to feel a little tension because you don't want to deal with this because you love them, you don't want to deal with the bullshit, but you know you got to? In this state of being primed about it, how's it going to go? But if you primed yourself with laughter or joy or playfulness, and now you go to be with them, and somebody goes, no! And you go, that'll with them real quick, won't it? They don't have to deal with you enjoying yourself. So we are in charge. Here's the point. Life changes the moment you make the decision that you're 100% responsible for your experience of life. Not responsible like a heavy, response-able. If you're responsible, you're able to respond. You can only respond and be able to do that if you own yourself. And if you know people can do anything, but still you're the authority of what it means to you. You're the authority of your own emotions. You're the authority of your own actions. Who's with me on this? Say I. And blaming other people, which the human mind is always looking to do, will never make you happy, never make you fulfilled, never bring you closer to people, never make you grow. So when you're willing to take that level of responsibility where you're like making judgments and you go, oh, that person's such a bullshitter, such a liar. One of the things I always do is I do a reversal in my head and go, you're such a liar. No, I'm not. Where are you? Well, I did about that once. Who's ever said something and after you said it thought to yourself, what I just said was total. How many have ever thought this? How many have ever heard someone else say something and thought to yourself, what they just said is See, if you can see it in someone else, they can see it in you. Better to just own it and let go. Because that's what the mind does. If we let the mind run us, we're going to have a tough time. This mind serves me. I don't negotiate with it. Remember I told you? I don't say, well, I'll do this. Well, maybe we could do it. Maybe we'll jump in the water now. It's like, it knows I'm not here to negotiate. When I say it, we do it. That's what we want to train ourselves to do today. Who's up for that? Say I. So the first step to that would be priming. So let me show you exactly what I do for 10 minutes. By the way, my son, people around him enough, he laughs so much, he is a priming to other people when he shows up in the room. Because they're around Josh enough, and they know at any moment Josh could crack them up, and there's an unconscious anticipation of it. Does that make sense? So even if something's stressful, they're almost on their edge that Josh is going to do something of this nature. It's an incredible skill. It's an incredible gift. So here's how I prime myself. I do 3 things. First, before I do the 3 things, whenever you want to make a change or improve something, the first place you want to improve it is in your mental, emotional state. If you do something from a pissed off state, from an exhausted state, from a frustrated state, from a weak state, it won't matter what you do. The thoughts are weak when you're in a weak place. The actions are weak. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a simple breathing pattern. And the breathing pattern, if you're familiar with yoga, it's like breath of fire. It's similar to breath of fire. And it's a movement. And what it's going to look like is this. You're going to sit up in your chair with energy. I'll show you what we'll do and then we'll do it. We're going to raise our hands up as we take the air in, and then you're going to blow it out. Only you're going to blow it out your nose. Now to do that, what actually changes biochemistry and what will get you to wire and fire a new set of patterns that are more elegant, more rewarding, more impactful than the ones that society will condition you to do if you let it, okay? So 3 minutes, a minute each. And by the way, when I do it, I usually pick 2 strong ones, and then I pick something really simple and I make myself really feel the gratitude, like the wind on my face, or the smell of the ocean if I'm doing it outside by my house, or the look on one of my children's faces. And I'll just fill that up. And the reason is, if all you do is get grateful about big things, you're going to miss most of life. You know, the astronauts that went to the moon, think about that journey. Think about, as a child, these guys dreamed of being an astronaut. They competed with hundreds of thousands of people, and then a few of these guys get on that rocket and go to the moon. And imagine, you walk on the moon, you look back, and you see that picture we've all seen of the blue-green earth that's so beautiful, and it's not a photograph, they were the ones there seeing it. Talk about an experience. And then they face their fears and come in and they land successfully in the ocean and they're rescued. And then there's a ticker tape parade in New York. They shake the president's hand. And now what do? You're 32 years old and you walked on the fucking moon. What do you do now for adventure? And if you study the astronauts, Buzz Aldrin, all these guys, I had a chance to interview most of them, not all, but 3 of them. Almost all of them wrote about, described what happened to them. They no longer had a compelling future. How do I have an adventure? I walked on the moon. Everything else is small by nature. And as a result, they got depressed. Most of them abused alcohol and drugs. Why? Because they're looking for adventure on a moon run and they missed the adventure in a smile. So I train myself daily, prime myself to find those little things that are so beautiful and feel them. Because the more I feel them, the more I can give that to someone else. The more I can move that direction, the more I can enjoy as well. It's putting the mask on me first. Who's with me on this? Say I. Okay? So that's, after we do our breathing, step 1 of the 3 steps. First the breathing, then the 3 steps. 1, gratitude. 3 minutes roughly, a minute each. 3 different moments you can feel grateful for. and feel it, enjoy it, savor it, live in it. Next 3 and a third minutes. Second piece we're gonna do is you're gonna feel the energy in you and do a prayer or a blessing. Now, I know many of you are not religious. I'm not suggesting you need to be, but almost all of us know there's a power in love. You know, if God was love and we didn't come up with all the other names for God, you wouldn't have much argument between people. So imagine that what you're going to do is imagine that energy of God, the universe, whatever you want to imagine, coming down into you like a white light and breathing it down in through your body, down your legs, into the earth, and then coming back up and out again. So it's, and then comes back up. And you don't have to do this with your hands, but I'm trying to show you what the feeling is. And while you're doing this, what you're going to do during those 3 minutes is you're going to give thanks. It's like a prayer saying, heal my body, my mind, my emotions, strengthen me, make me the best I can be, strengthen my love, my passion, my courage, whatever it is that you value in yourself. And you feel that happening. Of the 3 minutes, I do that for about 1.5 minutes, and the other 1.5 minutes, I then take that energy through me, and I send it in a circle around to my children, to my family, to my friends, to my coworkers, to my associates, to my partners, to the people I meet on the street, to my clients. And so it's taking the energy in. Now, you might sound like woo-woo stuff, but the idea of allowing your nervous system to heal and strengthen, just the focus of that alone, for you is strong, and sending to others as well. So you can think it's all bullshit, but try it and decide based on the experience. If you do it a while, I think you're going to find it'll deepen that sense of gratitude, because it becomes not only gratitude, but a healing, a strengthening, and a gift to those you love. The last 3 minutes, I call 3 to thrive. You're going to think of 3 things that you really want to accomplish or achieve, but instead of like hoping it happens or thinking about it happening, you're going to step in your mind and experience it as if it's done. You're going to see it or feel it, breathe it, celebrate it like you've already achieved the goal. What you're doing is training your reticular activating system. And we talked about this the other day, the part of your brain that notices things. When you did, before you bought that car outfit, you never noticed them. Now you buy that car outfit, those cars and outfits are everywhere. How come? Because your RAS, now that you own one, says this is important. I need to pay attention to this. Well, when you get clear what you want and you see it as done and feel it and create it in your mind and your heart, and you celebrate it, there's a sense of certainty that enters your body, and your reticular activating system starts to go to work on making it happen.
I get to speak. I get to speak all over the world, and it's always an honor and a privilege. And I always tell people, Saban has even brought me down to Alabama a few times, and I told him he's putting my VFL card in jeopardy, right? But it's nothing like being back in Tennessee. The love is different, the energy is different, and it's special. And it's always a privilege and an honor. And so before I get started, I want to make sure I express my gratitude to Pastor Davis and his wife. Thank you all so much for thinking enough of me and providing me with this opportunity. I want to thank Jason. I want to thank Chris. We rode down from the airport together, for them taking their time to come and get me. Also to the Sparta campus. It's a pleasure to be with you guys as well. And as I was standing back in the little alleyway here and I was watching that video, man, that video was awesome, right? And I was watching it and I'm like, man, I thank God that's not the other video that ESPN did, right? Because ESPN did a video and it was pretty cool, right? And I'll never forget, I was home one day in Atlanta with my wife and our 2 children, and we got an 8 and a 9-year-old, 11 months apart, Irish twins, give us a run for our money every day of the week. And I was hanging out and the producer called about the film. And so when I picked up, he said, "Hey, Ink, what are you up to?" I said, "Man, just hanging out, getting a little family time." He said, "I need you to take a seat. I got some news I want to share with you." I sat down. I said, "What you got?" He said, "Do you remember the film we did?" I said, "Of course, man, forever indebted to you guys for it." He said, "Well, it's nominated for an Emmy." I said, "Man, that's pretty cool." I said, "Give me a second. I want to go in the kitchen. I want to share this with my wife." And so me and my wife, we've been at it since 5th grade, puppy love, the whole 9. So I go in the kitchen and I say to my wife, I said, "Babe, you're not going to believe it. The film with ESPN is nominated for an Emmy." And my wife was like, "Whatever." And I was like, "No love?" Right? And she was like, "I don't care about sports," right? And so I'm super competitive. And so I walk back into the other room with my kids and I say to the producer, "Man, who are we up against?" Right? "I want to win this. I want to bring it back home to my wife, even though she doesn't care," right? "To my mother, my grandma, like I want to win this." And the first name he says was, "Ink, there's a film about Muhammad Ali." I said, "We lost." I said, "We lost," right? And we ended up losing, but I got nominated, so it's all good, right? Yeah.